There's an important story. It's about a certain Hasid. And there's no doubt that you know that a Hasid is one who follows the Hasidic form of Judaism. But this Hasid was inspired, in fact impelled, to make a pilgrimage to see Rabbi Israel. Rabbi Israel was called the Great Maggid. He was also called the Baal Shem Tov. He was the founder of Hasidic Judaism. When the Hasid came into the presence of Rabbi Israel, he had the great blessing of being invited to the Sabbath meal with this great rabbi. And during the course of that meal and the day that followed at the synagogue, the Hasid was greatly uplifted and edified, not only by the presence of this great soul, but also by the words that he imparted. But before the Hasid left to return to his own village, he went to farewell the great Maggid. And in that farewell, the great Maggid said to him, I understand that your travels and your return will take you via a certain village. In that village there lives a very beloved friend and disciple of mine. Would you please seek him out and give him my love and regards? Well, the Hasid was very excited about this. Not only did he have all the blessings that he'd received from the great Maggid, but he was going to have the pleasure and the honor, indeed, as he thought, of visiting one who was a great and illustrious soul, as he interpreted from what the great Maggid had said. But when the Hasid came to the village that was named by the Baal Shem Tov, and he went to the synagogue and asked, can you tell me where I can find Rabbi Menachem? This was the name that the great Maggid had given him. And everyone said, no, we don't have a Rabbi Menachem here. We don't have, our rabbi is Rabbi Yaakov. And we don't know any Menachem. And then one of those who were present mentioned, oh, I wonder if he means Mad Menachem. Yes, said the Hasid, tell me, where is he? Where can I find him? Oh, they said, Mad Menachem, he's always in the yeshiva, in the house of learning, the school there. But he doesn't speak to anyone. All he does all day is put his head in these ancient books that nobody's ever seen. And he teaches the children sometimes, but they think he's crazy too. The Hasid insisted, please tell me where, point him out to me. So this they did, but as he was moving off to find this Menachem, one of the men said, oh, if you want him to speak to you, just tell him you're hungry. So the Hasid went, and sure enough, sitting hunched over a table in the house of learning, there was a man quietly studying what was obviously a very ancient tome. So the Hasid went over to him, but he didn't even raise his head to acknowledge his presence at all. So after a little while, the Hasid tapped him on the shoulder and said, I'm hungry. Well, immediately, Menachem looked up from his books, silently got up, took some coins out of his pocket, went off and bought some bread and some sardines and brought them back and placed them in front of the Hasid. he sat there while the Hasid ate his bread and his sardines. And then the Hasid said, after he'd made his thanks to Menachem, he said, I've just been with the Baal Shem Tov. And immediately Menachem's face lit up like sunlight. And the Hasid said, he sends his love and greetings to you. Well, it's like a great light was coming out of Menachem. He said, please, please, tell me everything. Tell me every word that the Baal Shem Tov said. So, over the next moments, the Hasid related all that he could remember of what the Baal Shem Tov had said over the time that they had been together. And as this was being related, Menachem's presence and his being just became so elevated and light and joyous. After the Hasid had completed what had been occurring while he was there, they both got into a very learned discussion. And after this discussion was over, the Hasid said to Menachem, you know, as I understand it, you're a great being. And if you wanted to, you could become a great teacher. Why don't you go and give out your learning? You could become famous and well known and share your knowledge. But then Menachem said to him, if you have enough awareness to understand that I could be a great teacher, you will perhaps understand that I already have all that I need or all that I could ever want. All in life is perfect. So without saying any more, the Hasid left. But after this, he went about telling everyone that he'd met this man, Menachem, who was learned. And of course, there were those who sought him out. They found Menachem and they begged him to become their rabbi. But he refused. On each occasion, he refused. But then, those who had sought him out decided that they would send a delegation to the Baal Shem Tov himself. And when they did, the Baal Shem Tov said, well, you go and tell that Menachem that I tell him that he has to teach. So they went back and they told Menachem that the Baal Shem Tov had said that he had to become a rabbi and teach. But again, Menachem refused. And again the delegation went back to the Baal Shem Tov. And when he was told what had transpired, he said, bring Menachem to me, bring him to me. So this is what they did. They took their little delegation and they brought Menachem into the presence of the great Megid himself. Now, when he was sat down in front of the rabbi said to him, I demand that you become a rabbi and teach these people. And Menachem said, beloved rabbi, if you tell me to go and jump off the cliff, I will gladly do so, but I cannot fulfill your order to teach and become a rabbi. Well, the rabbi got very, very angry. And he stood up and he said, well then, I'm going to intercede with those above that the gates of heaven will be closed to you and you will be relegated to to the depths of hell. Well, Menachem became ashen, and tears began to flow down his face. He bowed his head and was silent. And then he looked at the Baal Shem Tov and said, even though I may be relegated to the depths of hell, I cannot succeed to your order to become a rabbi and a teacher. With that, Rabbi Israel, the Baal Shem Tov, went over to Menachem and put his arms around him and embraced him and said, my dearly and beloved Menachem, congratulations, you have passed the last and final test. All of us, to reach this place where we are, have been humbled in one way or another. We've been brought to our knees, and we've wept. We've been shattered. We've been crushed. But knowing well as we do what it is to be humbled, crushed, shattered. What's the difference between that experience that we all know so well and this experience of such a one as Menachem? Can we recognize humility in this story? I can't. What is it about this that differs from that experience that we have all known? To be humbled, to have our head on the floor in one way or another, and to stand as a Menachem did in what I guess we would have to call as his truth. Because the final words of the Baal Shem Tov to Menachem were, go back to your school. Be empty and be filled. What's the deep meaning of this story? How does it differ? To what we would call humbleness and humility.
Humbleness and humility are a show to everybody else. Menachem wasn't. He knew what he was doing. So that's sort of an eager point of view. And that's what they wanted him. They wanted him to fill that role.
Yes. Where does that place us then? Knowing that we too could not put on the mantle whatever mantle it might be. The teacher, the healer, the guru, the this or the that. Where does it leave us then? What does it mean when the Baal Shem Tov says, go, return to your school, be empty and be filled?
Empty of knowing and filled of the truth.
Being empty of the self.
In this story, there's no trace, is there? Of self. No questions. Is this way for us too? What is this final test?
Answers only to God.
The Dengar. You could be somebody. You could be famous. You could be a teacher.
He couldn't attach himself to anything, not even knowledge.
No.
So if you're in the moment, if he was in the moment, he knew that